A number of people have come up to me, and I'm thinking back to the first time that I presented at Lake Blackshear and stood in front of you and really, it was emotional, but really sharing just the terrible situation we had in our office. And a number of you have come up to me yesterday and today and just asking, are things better? Have there been improvements made? And I'm really pleased to tell you that it really has happened. And any part that you played in that and sharing your concerns with anybody that had an influence on that, we certainly appreciate that. The governor and the legislature have certainly been good to state employees over the last 4 years. I've been in this capacity for that length of time. But in addition to that, in particular, Commissioner King, and I want to make sure his name is out there, but that's the Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner, John King. And he has 2 more years left in his term, so not to put anything out there, but what will happen in 2026 is unknown to me. I have 10 years with the state, which was my plan. If he decides to run again for insurance commissioner, then my vision is to stay on if he wants to. Chief Tony Pritchett is the deputy commissioner. He's been in place for about a year, and he and I make an amazing team. We've been good friends for a while, and this is one of those things in business. So I started as an inspector, so my supervisor is now the deputy state fire marshal, but I'm now his supervisor. Deputy Commissioner Pritchett was the arson chief, and I was his supervisor, and now he's my supervisor. It's just interesting, but the great thing about that is we all get along very, very well as a team, and we're all pulling on the rope in the same direction. But back to Commissioner King, I'll just give you the numbers. We were in the safety fire division with all 7 departments that we had. At that time, we had 6. We were at about 80 employees. And at the I would say one of the worst times, we were down to 12 building inspectors. That's the group that probably most intimately works with your facilities for the entire state of Georgia. And right now, we're carrying 120 positions. So that's a 50% increase over that time period that I've been interacting with you. We've got about 3 weeks left in the legislative session. Crossing fingers, all indications are go, as they might say. But if everything continues as planned, we'll be fiscally able to hire another 45 people coming July 1. And basically, the commissioner went out really understanding the importance of what safety fire does across the state of Georgia. And there is a relationship between good fire prevention and good safety programs that relate to reduced insurance claims and costs and so forth. So he was able to find a way to implement some fees to skim off money in that industry that moves through our office and redirect it towards safety fire. No other commissioner has done that in the history of the office. And so with that, we're looking at the opportunity to put on, like I say, an additional 45 people, which is roughly 30-odd% increase over where we are now. We're really starting with full implementation of that. We're really looking at starting to return to numbers in the office that haven't been realized since probably even the 90s or so. But I say this when I travel around, and it's a little embarrassing when I'm with the National Association of State Fire Marshals. I've had 2 or 3 events recently where 30 or so fire marshals from all over the state of, all over the United States are meet together for various things that we're after or concerned about. One of them was the single exit stairs in multi-story residential. So right now in the life safety code, you're maxing out at typically 4-story apartment buildings with a single stair, and they have to meet very strict requirements. There's initiatives across the country to allow 6-story and greater with a single exit stair in apartment buildings. And we historically, categorically feel like that's just not a really great idea. Even if you have 4 units per floor opening into a common stair, all it takes is one door to be left open during a fire, and now you take the exit out for everybody. Even with the sprinkler system, you still have to deal with the products of combustion, the smokes, the toxic gases, the reduced visibility. And having a two-way ways out is just a thing that we really want to pursue or maintain. What they've been doing is they've been skipping the code process and going straight to the legislature and trying to pass laws with the legislators, and they call it under affordable housing. So anyways, back on topic. We get together, and I'm one of the rare fire marshals in the office who is able to hire people, who's able to equip their staff with every tool or piece of equipment they need to do their job. And these are very good days for safety fire in the history of our office. So I want to thank you for, first of all, your interest and support in that, in these years as we move forward. I've had, as I listen to the conversations that take place here, Mark, where'd you go? There, over there. Mentioning about some of the things that fire inspectors, surveyors, whatever, may ask you to do or tell you to do, and the term recommended came up. And I tell my staff there is no such thing. If you wear the badge, you don't get to make recommendations, okay? Because they functionally aren't recommendations anymore. If you, with your authority, tell somebody that, well, it would really be good if, I'd recommend that you make that exit sign pink because I like pink, and you're thinking, oh, it's not in the code, but I really want this guy to be happy, and if I do it, he'll be more supportive of other things that we might run into. And it's just one of these dynamics where you find out somebody has done something, an owner, property owner, a facility operator has done something, and you hear back, well, the fire inspector required it. And then if you talk to the fire inspector, then they're like, well, no, I just recommended it, or I told them I thought it would be a good idea. We don't have that luxury because I will say with an exception, on occasion, the enforcer and the customer get to enjoy a very unique relationship. It doesn't happen often. I don't think it does. It should happen more often, where you trust each other, okay? Well, that has to start with a relationship where people are you're confident in a person's motives, you're confident in their knowledge, and it's a two-way street. And I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole here in just a second. But if you have that relationship with one of your stakeholders, that's great. It could be between the fire inspector and the facility engineer, or a fire inspector and a fire alarm contractor, or a sprinkler contractor, or generator contractor provider. It could be, you could reach that place where you can just have really honest conversations, disagree, argue, discuss things, and then you say, let's go, grab lunch. But those relationships oftentimes take years and years to develop. So without that, it's very difficult for somebody that wears the badge to do things like make recommendations. And some of those things I'm sitting there thinking, God, I hope that wasn't one of my people, So I'm going to say this. A few of you have done it, but if you run into a problem, local jurisdiction that is in your facilities, which, by the way, the law enables them to enter your facility to do inspections. What they don't have is the authority to tell you what to do. They don't have the authority to tell you to fix anything in your facility. Those that fall under 25-213, which would be a healthcare facility or ambulatory surgical center, if your MOB is separated from the building, that's different. It may be on its own, but they are required by law, if they write up an inspection, to forward that to my office for like a complaint. And then we follow up on that we'll usually ask them to come along with us. We go out to the facility, we look at the item that they've identified, and then we'll make the final determination as to whether this is something that needs to be fixed or not. Now, common sense is going to say, if it was that exit sign wasn't working the day they came in there, just, you know you're going to fix it anyway, right? They're helping you create a punch list. But if you have a problem with a local inspector or one of my inspectors, I do want to know about it. You know, I want to know how it was communicated. I want to know what was communicated. The law says that if you're cited for something, told that you have to fix something that falls under the fire code, they have to give you the citation for it. You know, code, edition, chapter, section. Now they don't have to write out the words for you, but chapter 12, you know, 12.3.2.5, whatever it is, they have to give that to you. They can't just say, because I said so, or go find it yourself. That the law doesn't allow for that. If they do that, I need to know that. Whether it's my staff or local people. This may come back to haunt us one day, and I'll regret this, but last year we passed in the legislature a law that if I receive a complaint, the insurance commissioner can initiate an investigation, go to a local jurisdiction, and enforce the code that I adopt and I interpret. So if we find a local jurisdiction doing something that is contrary to what the code that we adopt and I interpret, then we now have the law that tells us to tell them to stop. Since our office was formed 76 years ago, we've not had that authority. And we had a lot of rogue actors out there just doing whatever they want to do and putting people through their paces for no good reason. And I could tell them they should stop. I could tell them that they're not interpreting or applying that code in the way that I'm interpreting it. And I could warn them that if they should find themselves in a lawsuit for one of the malfeasance, malpractice, or misfeasance, that they're not going to have my support if they've done it contrary to what I told them they should do. But now we can go a bit further and say stop and legally serve them and order them to stop. That was something we put in place. Now, the danger with that is, and I'm just going to put it out there, if you have a fire marshal that doesn't have a firm understanding of how those codes should be being applied, then you get into trouble there. So I hope one day that this doesn't come back to bite us as a state. But I'm going to share this. I've shared this with the fire inspectors. Do any of you, are you members of NFPA and you get the NFPA journal? Look at this recent journal that came out and the cover story on it. And it's pretty long, so find it and read it. In Georgia, we're in the year of adopting, by the way, we hope it is July 1 now, by the way, our updated codes, the 24 Life Safety Code, blah, blah, blah. Y'all are with CMS or under the 2012, we get it, but just understand. Like if you had an MOB that's not under the CMS, then you would be under the state adopted current editions, and we're getting ready to update all of those. The hearing is a week from yesterday, so it's on March 20th in the Floyd building. And then there's some time that has to pass in order to get it through the Secretary of State's office. We're shooting for July 1. But we have the ability, by our own choice, we adopt them every 5 years, okay? And the reason for that is ISO. Y'all familiar with ISO? We've talked about this maybe before. So all your communities where you live in Georgia are under some sort of community rating system. And so that's why your fire trucks say ISO class 2, ISO class 1. The lower that number, the better your insurance is on all your properties, commercial and residential. If the codes get outside of 5 years old, ISO penalizes the community for that. So it's in our interest to keep the codes updated at least every 5 years. But if in between 5 years I see a code edition that is actually better for Georgia, I can go to a hearing and adopt a newer edition. Haven't been doing it that way. I'm actually looking at making the cycles a little closer together, because what happens every 5 years, we've got to work for 18 months to update all of the 300 and some codes we adopt. I'd rather split them up into thirds, because If you look at the 3-year code adoption cycle, if you take those 300 and odd NFPA codes, they're all done about 100 each year, and then it repeats. So I'd like to model the state after that. But there are states in this country, Ohio, North Carolina, Maine, Vermont. Some of them, they cannot by law adopt any new codes less than 15 years apart. There are some, it's 10 years. There are some, they have to do a financial impact study before they adopt a new code. I had a code the other day, I'm working with an aircraft hangar, NFPA 409. A later edition actually makes it easier for design purposes. They've refined some of the data, and they've said we were overzealous on this side, we can back off on some of our design criteria. So a new code is actually benefiting the customer in this case. But trying to explain that to lawmakers is not the easiest thing to do. What's best for us in Georgia is for code officials to be reasonable and practical and use some common sense when they're applying our codes. Instead of being these dig their heels in, it's my way or the highway, just get your checkbook out because I don't care how much this is going to cost you. That winds up leading to states like Ohio and North Carolina and Vermont and Maine and those other places that the legislators got involved, and they really, I think for the most part, have limited the authority of the state fire marshal there to do what's best for their citizens when it comes to fire safety. So anyways, I just wanted to take a minute and say thank you. If you have problems, I want to know about it. And like I said, a few of you have called me, and I appreciate that. If you've got my number, text me. If you email me and you don't see something back, I apologize. Just text me and say, hey, I sent you an email the other day. If you can get a minute, go take a look at it. One that came up recently, we had a confusion over sprinkler protection beneath mechanical equipment, duct and mechanical equipment over 4 feet. And I don't even remember all the details of it, but somehow there was a belief that my fire inspector said that, it's going to be real inconvenient to have to go up there and remove or service or inspect the sprinkler head periodically. And if we have to service that piece of mechanical equipment that's, it's subject to being knocked out and causing blah, blah, blah. There's nowhere in the code where it says that, that's part of the exception, so you don't have to put a head under something that's over 4 feet. I was in the sprinkler industry for 9 years. So there are ways that you could put that on an isolation valve, supervise that valve, just like you do in elevator machine rooms and hoistways like we used to ensure that you could close that off. If you have an accidental discharge, you've only dumped the water that's in that pipe, you're not going to trip the system, and it's supervised so you're ensured that you're going to put that back in service when you're done. I mean, there's ways to apply some common sense here, but that all came to me because a contractor reached out to me because they felt, one, I don't want to do it wrong and then I get caught on a DNV survey or a Joint Commission survey or a CMS survey down the road, and then how embarrassing is that going to be for us or anybody else when somebody signed off on it? So that's just an example. It's not about being right, it's about getting it right. So let's, as I've tried to share from day one, this is a team effort here, and that's what I want to make sure that our people are being, an equal part in that process with you guys. So, all right, with that, that's me, I think. Ba-doom-ba.
Well,
Yeah.
if y'all need any of my comments or help, you have my cell phone, so just give me a call.
Did you enjoy looking at our ICU the other day?
Yes, that was yesterday, and it's beautiful. I need to issue the CO for it instead of a temporary.
You can't do it. Well, either way, we
Yeah.
just need to occupy it by Monday.
Yep.
That's part of the building anyway.
Yep, I'll issue that when I get back. Yeah, I had to check.
You said something about Maya, you played her a compliment.
I did.
Yeah, maybe you want to share that?
No, not in front of everybody. No, I'm just kidding. Well, it had to do with, you were seeking input from us on some, and I don't remember, it was MRI equipment or something that was going into a renovated space in a hospital. And, wanting us to make sure that the sprinkler coverage and that other stuff was, I actually have been trying to, not trying and failing on my side, not your side, about just getting in touch with you about like, yeah, I like that idea, let's work that process out. Which never happened before. It always came from the facility or the contractors involved. Somebody would say, hey, that's, can you make sure this is gonna be all right, maybe beforehand. But the best time is to catch it while it's on paper before it gets to the built world. It's less expensive that way, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so, anyway, thank you. It would have seemed weird if I'd have just started into that, so that's why I'm glad you brought it up.
I think
Yeah.
it's from like my years of being a project architect where I was responsible for all of the coordination and then doing the CA, which I really enjoy. And so doing inspections is kind of like me doing CA. Now, because it's just me now, it's harder for me to drive around, but when I do get to drive, you know, I'd much rather see things and people in person. But I'm having to rely more on the virtual inspections, and y'all have been a great help. I mean, and it's fun too. You see somebody FaceTiming, maybe they've got their thumb on the camera, or I'm looking up somebody's nose, or you know, all this kind of stuff, and they're like, no, wait, let's turn it around, and then so we're looking around, and everything is good, and everybody's been patient, knowing that, yay, I've just completed my first year. I've got 9 more to go until pension hits, yay. So I'm glad that y'all are kind of putting up with me and kind of helping me along. And I'm trying to keep the Ed Wilkins flame alive. You know, he always wore a light blue shirt, so I'm wearing a light blue shirt. But he didn't wear
That's a
pink
detail
tennis
that you
shoes.
picked up, that's scary, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was like, didn't he wear that last year? I think I'll wear it, but he doesn't wear pink tennis shoes, so that's where I'm a little bit different.
That's your flavor.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's have Latoya and Mark. You want to
Yeah. See,
And kind of an open-ended question type thing. You got the experts in front of you now. Some of them are authority experts even. And so we like to end our conferences with these types. Carrie, who you at?
With these types.
I
like that.
I
You're one of
would-
those.
Well,
I was.
well, time to go home. It's been good. Yeah. I love extemporaneous speaking.
Yeah.
Does
Just
anybody
throw out a
want
topic.
to?
Let's
I
just
was
go
about to say,
into
does
it.
anybody want to know when FGI is going to go to 2026?
Yes.
Yes.
It will. We're going to adopt it April 1st, 2026. The new code is coming out. It's actually got a new name. It's called Facility Code, FGI Facility Code. It is a code.
Okay.
What was it before?
It was guidelines. Yeah, so now it's
Not
code.
a standard, it went from a, that's
It's,
kind of a progression there.
yeah.
Usually it goes guideline, standard, code.
But
Yeah.
now it's code. And so what we're gonna do is on the DCH website, starting in April, we're gonna give everybody a heads up. Okay, guys, got a year. And I'm gonna ask FGI if I could put the draft, corrections, put the draft on the website so that you guys can see, you know, what kind of changes are coming up.
Mark and I had a question yesterday and then again today about what code. So that's great information. I can relay that to them now too. So what other good news do we have coming?
Anybody?
We saw the
I
joint
want-
commission stuff from George yesterday, and that's gonna be a little bit interesting.
I think we're at a place staffing wise in the building inspections department. There was a period of time, and I hate to use the word skeleton crew, but that's just about where we were. And there were a number of facilities, hospitals, that had contacted us because, for instance, with DNV, they wanted to copy of their last inspection report from the state authority. And you know what it's like on a major hospital. That can be 6 or 8 or more people from our office alone there for 2 or 3 or 4 days. And then it can be a week of actually, moving that information over into a compiled report, because you have, 2 or 3 teams out there, like I've participated in Grady and Navicent and Macon, and it's a heavy lift for an office that had 10 functioning inspectors in it, So anyways, we're at a place now, Deputy State Fire Marshal Keith Newbern. Any of you from South Georgia, Lanier County, down that part? Okay. Keith Newbern's been around for 30 years. He actually was in manufactured housing originally, and he moved over to building inspections. He was my supervisor, by the way. Chief Jimmy Gant retired. He was the last Deputy State Fire Marshal out of Coweta County. We appointed Keith Newbern as our Deputy State Fire Marshal. Mitchell Williams out of, I think, Moultrie, Tift County, is now covering that South Territory supervisor-wise. But all of that to say, we recently had a request come in, and we had to contemplate whether we were under the old, we can inspect it, but we would write a letter saying we don't have the resources to inspect your facility. And we're at a place now where we can shift that model. And the deputy commissioner and I discussed it last week, and so we're already, whoever it was, I won't say who it was, but making arrangement to get that scheduled and put a team together to work with them on that survey
While we're on that
inspection.
subject, Mark, talk about, the DMV's requirement to have your local authority, come through and approve your ILSM.
Yeah, that's under DMV, they're wanting if you you have to do something where you create an ILSM, then DMV wants your local fire department to come in and sign off on it. Well, they won't do that because they don't want to take the liability or the risk, I'm assuming. So they're finding that's a problem in a lot of areas, so they're actually looking at changing that to match a little bit more up with what the other requirements.
Well, they got that from us.
Did they?
Yeah, I mean, on the survey part, we just we can't do it.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
all right.
It's obvious, just
If you
that's,
send us a letter saying that you can't do it, then we'll
Well,
accept
that's
that.
what they informed us, that, if you reach out and they don't bid, to get by that standard, show evidence where you reached out to them a couple of times and you not get anything back. And what we were able to do in Columbus is get Ira to say he understands our process and agrees with concept.
Right.
That's it. I mean, he's not gonna prove it,
So having been a local fire marshal in Georgia, we oftentimes would have facilities that had either a part of accreditation or some other licensing process were supposed to have their emergency procedures reviewed and approved by the local responding fire department, and we would not approve anything.
No, in essence.
We're not gonna do that.
We wanna prove it.
No, we'll review it for you, we'll make comment on it, but we're not gonna take the liability of approving it and then some aspect of that
Matter of
fails
fact,
in the future.
you'll
Not
appreciate
gonna do
this.
it.
2 years ago, maybe 3, we had a local EMA, a new local EMA, Chance Corbett, who has an extensive background, so he was under the fire chief. So he did that for me. Well, then a year goes around, now he's directly up under the mayor. He's not under the fire chief anymore. So he wouldn't do it, and I did get one of our chiefs to do the same thing for me.
Okay.
But make the effort. Honestly, you may not get an answer back from them.
anybody else here at DMV that has an issue with that, need some help?
We just save all of, any type of communication, we just make sure we save.
Bet you a file,
And we showed it Tuesday morning in D&D and no other questions, so they understand.
I have some, Craig, can you speak to the elevator inspections, where y'all at on that, or are they kinda up to speed? Now, some of us
Oh,
were
no.
using third parties, that were, I guess,
Yes,
I call it
so-
deemed authority or whatever.
Right, so the state law allows for, a facility to hire somebody to do their third-party inspections of their elevators, and boilers for that matter. I think we were at, in the last 2024, out of the 60-some thousand elevators and escalators in the state, I think we were only in the 30 or 40 percentile getting inspected. As y'all may remember, we used to have a goal or expectation of they would be inspected twice a year, and we weren't even getting anywhere close to that. So we went into the regulations, changed that to an annual inspection, and we've been losing people, trained people. It's hard to get them on board and trained. And we have a state commission that we do. You're probably familiar with this for elevator inspectors. And then our supervisors and up get QEI, qualified elevator inspector certification nationally. But the staffing is better. I don't remember what the number is. I think it's like 28. But one of the things we're building out, when I came in, we only had two supervisors, and Ben Crawford was the manager. We now have four supervisors and one supervisor lead. At the time, we had each supervisor was supervising 12 and 13 inspectors apiece. Now we've got that down to we're at basically 5 a person. So as our model moves forward, as we're looking at this 45 positions, basically in any one section, if we're going to hire five inspectors, we're also bringing on a supervisor with them. When you're going to need mentoring and teaching and monitoring and all of those things to ensure the quality of the inspections that turn out, you can't do that when you have you barely have time to do anything but keep up with where they're going that day. I hope, and elevators is one of the sections that we're adding a number of additional positions to, because that's where one of our needs is the greatest. I think all of them are bad, but that's one of our biggest. I don't think I hope my number wasn't off that bad. It might have been 60%.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just knew y'all were struggling with it.
And it's just the good side is this. We're a great training organization for the private industry. So we hire people, we get them trained, they get experience, and then they go to work in the private sector for $30,000 or $40,000 more than we can pay them. But oftentimes, we've been getting those people back. They find that they either don't like the way things are being done, or they don't like traveling like they're being forced to travel. And so we've actually had a number of people return to the office. I can think of 3 or 4 right now that left over the last year and now have returned. So the grass isn't always greener on the other side, or when it's greener, you don't let it. They fed it to make it that green. So he smells what I'm stepping in. Yeah. But anyway, but thank you. We're getting there. We're getting there.
I just knew some of the guys might be interested.
How is plans review time frame going these days?
Well, it all depends on, first of all, how good the drawings are.
I like that.
Yeah, and that's where, sometimes if the drawings are really good, and also the complexity of the project and also my workload, I can turn it around in a couple of days.
Good.
But if I have to cut and paste and cite chapter and verse for just about every room and show somebody how to do medical space planning, that might take a little bit longer. But I will send out like a 10-page report, and I won't put it in a construction permit. What I'll do is I'll get them on the phone and then we'll talk it through. Like, do you guys
This
realize?
is why you need healthcare architects.
Yeah,
Exactly right.
yeah.
They need to be well versed in it.
Well versed in healthcare.
Yeah, you can't just step in and out of that. And I've been coming across people who want to build an ASC, and they have a doctor who's got some very strong opinions. And in fact, I've received, a couple of sketches over the weekend. Well, this is what, I know how this stuff goes together. So this is the way it's supposed to be drawn. And I'm looking at this piece of paper that has like this chicken scratch on it. And it's from,
That's ready for approval.
yeah, I'm looking at it and I'm like, you start turning around, you're like, what is this? I said, I think your designer's supposed to be doing this. I mean, how come you're talking to me instead of talking to them?
Yeah.
I mean, they need to be doing this. You're doing their job.
Yeah, that's
Well,
what
I
we're
don't
paying
like
for.
what they're doing. And I said, well, maybe they're not the ones that you should be working with. Well, that's what happened.
Oh. I said fire 'em.
Well, that's exactly what happened. And I'm not supposed to get in the middle of, recommending anybody but I'm seeing a lot of it where, the architect wants some work, a developer comes along and it says, I have this office building and I think it's pretty good for a nursing home. And I'm like, do you now? Oh, okay.
That's pretty good too.
So, yeah, there are some challenges with that, but it's never as cut and dry, like, yeah, if everything was perfect, then it'd be like 2 days or a day, depending. But,
That's a big improvement even.
oh, well, yeah, I mean, I like this stuff. This is fun for me. It's like 3D chess, But when you have people that, you're like, how in the world did you get into this?
Can you name it?
Hmm?
Can you name them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, frequent flyer.
No, yes, let's not go there.
Latoya, what can we
This is
expect
being
from Ashley
recorded.
this year?
Well,
There's a camera.
what you can expect from Ashley this year is that we're going to release a new strategic plan and the direction we're going as an organization. Of course, as many organizations, we're looking to stabilize the membership, as in increase the membership. The goal is of what Mike Hatton has, like 10,000 more people he wants to add to Ashley, because they're out there. I don't know how everyone else is. Well, I don't know how it's in Georgia, but I know in Alabama, AMP is coming in, or AMPF is coming in pretty heavy with recruitment or I would say publicity. They're doing a lot of initiatives trying to get more members in our healthcare.
Are you guys doing anything to draw in the crowd that we don't have? I mean, when you look, again, we keep saying, look around the room. And
Yeah.
whatever's getting in it, how are you guys looking at, or any efforts on that? I assume you do, I just don't know what's going on.
Yes,
with it.
it's strengthening our relationships with the chapters, trying to show that we have a lot of resources available to assist the chapters, just continuing that effort. And with the release of our strategic plans, just hoping to strengthen that line, that people know that, and I guess the core competency too.
Yeah.
That's driven to attract more people, especially new people.
That looked a lot
Yeah.
like CHFM on steroids.
Yes, yes.
I mean, really, you look
It
at
is. It's
that
basic.
core competency is adding to the CHFM, and that is the core competency that
Correct.
we need to do our job, so.
Correct. It's like breaking it, the study plan into sections. Yes. Yeah.
That should be helpful with CHFM if applied appropriately, so.
Yes, yes. And another big initiative that Ashley's doing, I don't know if you were, anyone was on the quarterly chapter call, but they have an initiative with some community colleges in Louisiana where they're creating their own healthcare facility management program with the core competency side by side, so that the employees have real hands-on training in the actual healthcare facility, and they're learning what's needed on paper, like, as we were saying, all the compliance, regulatory requirements, all the stipulations of working in a healthcare facility. They're learning from a textbook and from an instructor and learning it hands-on. So they're working to get that implemented across the United States, and they're asking for any facilities that are interested in volunteering to taking on that program, be another test site, please.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
I'll get back with you. Columbus Tech might be interested. I know we would, so.
Oh, that'd be great. And then you could have one on this side of the country. That'd be great.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll get together on that. Now, that's
Is
supposed to
there
happen.
a resource, Latanya, where we can go, because our footprint covers North, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, so obviously different jurisdictions, so to speak. Is there a resource that Ashley has to give updates when things are going, like Terry gave me, the information that you shared, but I was not aware until I talked to you that, CMS is at where they are currently. So as a vendor, and especially us, we like to keep very current on what the exact, codes are, especially pointing back to what we do, for NFPA 110 specifically. But just, I find that a struggle, and if I'm looking for, I guess, some secret sauce.
Yeah.
And you know, that's a good point. And as associate member, I can connect you with the associate representative on our advisory board, and he can help you answer all those questions from your perspective.
Okay,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
yeah.
We got into the conversation of which code, which area was on, and I kinda walked through with him and understand why one area might be on 2016, if it's under CMS, it's still under 2010.
Correct.
And showed him off his insurance commissioner website where you can find out what the current code in Georgia is. And I said, Carolina's got a site, I don't know what it's called there, but I'm sure they've got the same thing.
Correct.
But no, I don't know of any national database that has them all, cause they changed too much, so.
It all started with the ASTM D975 test.
All right, what kind of questions you have?
I've got a question for Craig. You know, we got into this issue with elevator doors and people getting injured, and if an elevator door bumps into a passenger, what's the protocol?
Was there an injury? If they're reporting an injury, we're to be notified
Is
immediately.
it, now specifically if they're reporting injury, if they say my arm hurts and they walk off?
I don't think you have anything to report. I
No,
mean,
you don't, but if they go seek medical attention.
You probably need to, yeah, not
then-
probably, you
and
need to be
then
notified.
the process there is to shut it down
That is correct.
until it's inspected?
I don't know that we have an exception, and I'll look if we have an exception for healthcare, but the danger here would be, of course, that what has, the mechanism of injury was something that is a failure of the equipment to perform properly,
Yeah.
and then we allow it to continue and it repeats that injury, that would not be an acceptable,
I get you.
circumstance, yeah.
So can we perceive that as
But,
an injury that required treatment,
no.
or an incident that required treatment, or?
I think
what-
if it's reported, we're gonna start there, because you don't know where the, the treatment might take place later when the person goes to see their personal physician days later or that following. I tell you what we might need to look at, and we can, Lee Fogelman is our lead supervisor, Butch Lynch is the new chief inspector. We have we get a lot of accident reports at Hartsfield Internet. I'm getting an itchy nose. We get a lot of accidents at Hartsfield International Airport. There's escalators, elevators, and the moving walkways. And people, more often than not, get tangled up in their luggage. They don't estimate the speed that they're moving, and they get dumped on the floor. When there is a reported accident to us, in accordance with the regulations, they have to shut that piece of equipment down, okay? Until we authorize its release to be put back in service. That doesn't always warrant an inspection by our staff on site to the facility. They immediately contact us. That phone number is on that inspection card. When you call that number, one of our supervisors or managers answers that call, okay? You'll have that conversation about what occurred. They may want some sort of documentation with that. Based on what the injury was, the severity of the injury, what the suspected reason for the injury, they may give authorization to go ahead and restore that, escalator or whatever it is to service, and then either find some way to follow up with documentation or an on-site inspection. But if somebody has, broken a bone, they've, had a skin avulsion, they've, had something horrific happen to them, which sometimes does happen, until we can absolutely rule out that the piece of equipment didn't contribute to that accident, it'll remain offline until our staff actually put eyes on it to say, yes, it's safe, return it to service. But what I'm saying is, what we can possibly, healthcare is a unique situation. You are heavily dependent on elevators, so having any of them out of service for any length of time it has a significant impact to get that. So what we might look at is, I think under most circumstances, if we're having this conversation, they're probably gonna, what's the word I want? Probably going to implement a similar sort of response that we do at Hartsfield. But what we can do is make sure we articulate that with everybody so they understand this, you know, isn't the Holiday Inn and they have another elevator and it's not, the impact is just inconvenient for people to, takes a little longer to get to their floor or get down. It's a different circumstance.
Because 90% of these, at least, I don't have the true statistics, I'm just guessing, are just because of people's not paying attention.
Yep.
Feeble maybe and not moving. And actually, it's not actually the door, but, you know, the safety aids, they didn't get out there enough and it bumped their arm. And so you've got a lot of that going on. Could there be a possibility that you guys look and say, if there is not any broken bone or immediate medical attention, that the service company can come, inspect it, check it, everything's functioning fine, and then release it?
I was gonna say, is Ben still there?
No, he retired. So Butch is
When Ben
the
was there,
chief.
what we were doing was similar to what he said. I would call, of course, we shut it down.
Right,
Of course, we were going on the protocol if you said if it was reported, if the person sought medical attention,
right,
then that's reported to us because it creates an incident report.
right.
I would call him and he'd ask, well, what exactly happened? I said, well, he said it hit her arm. And he said, well, call your service company and have them inspect it and then tell them to call me. And so they were, I don't know how they were doing that, but that was because
So
I
that's
guess
what
he
I'm
couldn't
saying.
get somebody out there. You know.
That's what I'm saying, is that we don't do that every time at Hartsfield because we get so many of them. I mean, you got 1 million people going through Hartsfield every day. So, there may be an opportunity to implement something where it doesn't require an elevator technician to come out and inspect the piece of equipment. There's gonna be a charge for that, of course. Well, usually, and I guess unless you got a service contract or something, but when it can be articulated what the injury was and what contributed to that injury, and that there's no obvious reason why that piece of equipment can't be put back in service, and then we can either have one of our inspectors come back and look at it or follow up with the licensed mechanic, elevator mechanic.
Makes sense.
But with a focus on getting the piece of equipment, if at all possible, and it is reasonably safe to do so, get it back in service. I think that's the bridge between that and an elevator in an office building or an apartment building or in a hotel or something.
Yeah, that would be nice if it was a critical elevator that, you know, we could get it back. We've even got some hospitals at certain areas that only have one elevator, you know.
Yeah, I got two, and either one would be detrimental with us, you know.
Right.
One for patients picking up our bed, the other one goes to the basement where the only one goes for all support services, so, yeah. it'd be
So let's identify primary contact with GASHE so that I can continue this conversation. I don't know who, okay.
Terry would be glad to take that on.
Terry's on the board.
He's on the board.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, whatever, that way I have one person that we can say,
One
this is what we
person,
came
and
up
You need me
with,
to help with that.
and this is, you know,
He need my help here.
and then you can share that with your members.
That's
Okay.
great.
We'll get it out there.
Good question, Tim.
Got one for you, Craig. I would want to find out who their local or their county state fire marshal is for their area.
Ouchie.
What's his name?
Yeah, exactly, ouchie.
Inspector Ouchie?
Yeah.
So I used to know mine really well at my former job. I was 18 years there.
Right,
I was always a
right.
tour guide. When they came through town, they'd be hitting me up for lunch and stuff like that, you know. Great relationship. But now I'm a small
It changes,
place.
the problem is that it is dynamic. So what's easier probably for me is to initially put you in, make sure you have the supervisor for that territory. And then the inspector could change because every time we add somebody, we have to take that 159 county map and change the districts for each person as what they're covering. So fortunately, their county groups are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So that's why sometimes we have to shift a line and now you're under a different territory. If we were more stable than that, it'd be nice to have a map where you can go in and click on a county and it tells you who the special hazards inspector is, the building inspector, who your community risk reduction person is, who your arson investigator is. I think South Carolina has something like that, but we're not quite there yet. Yeah.
All right. Any more questions before we wrap up?
You know who your supervisor is? Okay, I'll give you that.
I got, I'm still just on the whole thing about the new refrigerant. We talked about that yesterday, and he was saying that the line sets was gonna have to be encased, fire rated, and I've been thinking about that ever since. And I don't know if that's because it's hospital versus nursing home. I mean, we have, gas lines running through the attic or whatever that's not encased, fire rated, so I'm just thinking, what's
That's a
the,
good point.
what's the difference there? I mean, we're trying to, I mean, so is that still gonna be a requirement, is that a?
What is the line? I'm not familiar with this other than,
George,
Yeah.
Sort of use, propane for Freon.
right?
What are we gonna have to
So
do
what is the
around
line made out
lines?
of? What's acceptable under the
Copper.
gasket
Yeah.
or there? Huh?
I mean, it's not a.
Copper lines.
It's just copper line, it's nothing rated about the line.
Yeah, but your natural gas or propane is typically not running copper in your attic though. It's use your black iron pipe. So I could see a big difference with that. Now, whether it's less vulnerable to abrasion.
Any installed yet?
Sir?
Has anyone had one installed yet?
I think you're limited to 6 foot of copper at the end for the connection.
Right.
I just
Right.
been reading the design papers and everything that's been coming out and all that says how they've got to install it and design it and stuff like that. I haven't even seen any actual code that says this is how you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And all, but it's really just started manufacturing as of the first part of January. When all this stuff starts coming out of manufacturing, so it's all sort of fluid right now of what's going on.
Using propane don't sound like a good idea to
It
me.
don't.
Yeah, but, So, I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. I haven't seen or I'm not familiar with where it says that it has to be in some sort of rated
Sure,
enclosure.
we have, we just wonder what your
Oh.
take is gonna be on it. If we start running propane.
Is that what, but somewhere in there, it's saying that it needs to be in some sort of rated,
No, no.
oh,
If you
I thought he
just-
said that.
That's the
There's-
question we got for it.
There's a lot of stuff that's out there talking about the new freons and all
Right.
that's coming out, which is basically the propane, which has been around for a long time.
Right,
And basically what's coming out to be, you have a lot of split systems that can actually be either variable flow, type units and everything, so you got multiple pipe systems serving multiple actual units down the wall.
Right.
Outside compressor units somewhere. So now the fear is that you can run this flammable gas going down through there as a refrigerant. If you have a leak somewhere in there, you're not gonna know about it and all, and you possibility of having a fire or an explosion.
Right.
This is the discussion that's gone on.
okay,
Now, I have yet to see anything in hard code writing that says this is how we're gonna build it. I see a lot of people talking about it.
Okay.
That's what Mark Hogan said the other day. It's being talked about a lot. No one put one in yet that I know of. And all, like I said, they just started building this stuff back in January, phasing out all the other stuff.
Problem with that is the line set's not gonna move where the leak is.
No.
When you put them in, it's either gonna be at the connection point, and then down the road, it's gonna be at the evaporator. How you gonna case
Yeah.
that for fire, you know?
So there's a lot of questions and all to it, and I guess the question I'm hearing here is just basically, what sort of pre-take on this would be?
I think it's the same as y'all's. It sounds like a terribly bad idea, but it's. So,
Wouldn't go in my house.
as a lady I used to work with would say, it's all fun and games till your granny laying face up in the flower bed.
It's another one
I
of
don't know
those
where she
things
got
that's
that from.
coming.
Well, she had another one. It's all well and good. It's all fun and games until it's that's burning.
Yeah.
But and the fire truck can't get to your house. But it will be interesting. We're all going to be on this ride together because if it winds up being in a code that comes before on a nationally one of the NFPA codes. During the code adoption cycle for us at the state, then we'll have to deal with it. Either we leave it in the code as it's written, and the inclination is to assume that the committee, it's a consensus code process, that the committee vetted all of the concerns and they arrived at a reasonable conclusion, that the installation, the product, so forth and so on are safe. But we know historically that always isn't the case either. It is a consensus code process, and those people who have concerns oftentimes get overruled by those who, and whatever it may be, have a product to sell, or they have another vested interest, or they consider it to be cost savings, or protects the ozone or something else. Who knows what is the next concern du jour? But no, we're gonna be I guess crossing that bridge together when it gets here. If somebody, if again, if you run across where there's something about the installation mechanism, let me know. You're gonna find out it probably before we will. I mean, honestly.
You'll find out the first time the fire truck rolls and puts the fire out.
It could be.
So somebody start putting one in.
Could be. I mean, well, I mean, the whole thing with bonding gas lines in buildings, you know, the gas companies out there saying that after they go to hundreds, if you look at it nationally, fires in structures, and they through their investigation find a tiny little bitty pinhole in a gas line in construction somewhere, and it's because they had some lightning strike somewhere, and it traveled down that gas line and then went to ground on something, and when the electricity left the pipe, it poked a hole in it. And so that's why now they're looking at bonding those gas lines in particular, the flexible gas lines that you use between your hard line and the appliance. That's all of that going on. So
Well, just a quick question, would that be something that Ashley could help us with an advocacy group to research that, to make it sound like it's gonna be statewide, probably everywhere.
It's gonna be nationwide.
sounds like a great
Yeah,
idea.
it is.
So, that's something that we could help you out in front of?
Yes.
Sure.
I've heard of it,
Yeah.
It can be, yes.
that's a lot.
The other
If you-
side of that coin is, that's EPA trying to eliminate fluorocarbons because of the ozone damage, so under the Trump administration, you don't know how that may change.
Well,
Correct.
he did away with the, Paris Accord, he's already wrote that out. The problem about it is all your factories had already set up to start building this, and they're not planning on, my understanding is, they're not planning on going back now. It's cost too much money to go back.
You mean we're gonna be on the metric system next year?
Sir?
I just had to throw that one in. All right, we do need to wrap up. Time, get you guys out of here. Time there. Thank you very much for our panel. Appreciate you guys.